Hi, thanks for joining me on Basketball Australia's Building Better Basketball podcast series. I'm Michael Haynes, Basketball Australia's Head of Education and Development, and today I'm flying solo, and I'm talking about using competitive activities that are non-contact. This is particularly important as we return to sport following the COVID break, and there are restrictions in various states and territories as to the level of contact that can be used. But it's also something that coaches can use when they have injured athletes returning. They may want to minimize contact, or they may be managing the load of a team. So on a game day shoot around, they may want to minimize contact, or if they've had a particularly hard sequence of games over a short period, they may wish to minimize contact, but still have a competitive element. I'll just share my screen. So, why are competitive activities important? Well, it's the essence of team sport. One team competing against another, one player competing against their opponent. And we all see players who struggle to transfer excellent one-on-0 skills into a game because they actually haven't developed the ability to beat an opponent. They may have, be able to move the ball amazingly, but they haven't got the mindset and the skills to beat an opponent. As an old coach of mine used to say, if you practice against a chair, you only learn to beat a chair. And that is why competitive activities are so important. We're not talking about winning at all costs. And in fact, no one wins every contest. No one expects to win every contest. Our focus is on win the next contest. Compete, enjoy the competition. That's the fun of sport, is enjoying that competition. So some competitive activities, a really simple passing activity that has no contact. Tally ball. Each team has a ball, and you can have teams of whatever size you want. They could be small teams of 4, they could be larger teams, 7 or 8. It's up to you. And you can have as many teams as you want on the court at the one time. Just designate an area that's big enough given the number of players you have, whether that's within the 3-point line, half court, full court. Simple rules. You can't pass to whoever passed to you. You can't stand still. First team to make a certain number of passes. I like to keep the number of passes quite small because I think that keeps the intensity going. And then you can do the activity multiple times. And you can even add some other rules. So you might add that after you make a pass, you must touch the sideline or end line before you can catch it. That will require great communication between teammates where, no, don't pass it to me as I'm heading to a sideline, and then as I come back and I'm able to catch it, I communicate that again. You can add that if the ball hits the floor, unless it's a bounce pass, that you reset to 0 or you deduct points. It's really up to you what you do, but if you keep the target pretty small, 15 passes, 10 passes, then you can do it multiple times. It's non-contact because each team has their own ball. Yes, they are moving around in an area and they have to avoid running into each other, but that's basketball. 10 players in a small area, we have to be able to move, change direction, etc. So it emphasizes that, but it's no contact. You can quickly move it to a contact activity simply by removing a ball, so you now have a defensive team. And that's where contact becomes much more likely as they're trying to intercept, knock the ball away, etc. Shooting activities, very commonly, we do these at every practice probably, and there's a number of ways of making it competitive. First to a score. Again, I like to keep that score pretty small. So a group of 3, first to make 5 baskets. And then as soon as that's made, quickly move on to a next one. Might be shoot from a different position, swap sides of the basket, and then make 5 again. I find if you have too big a target, some groups tend to lose their intensity as they start to feel that, well, we're not going to be competitive, we're not making shots. If you've got inexperienced players, you can also add points for hitting the net, hitting the ring. So 1 point if it hits the net, 2 points if it hits the ring, 3 points if it goes in. First to make 30, something like that. Similarly, focus on your process. So if you're looking at layups, you may want to award a point if the correct footwork is used, as well as points if it goes in. can also emphasize your own offensive rules, pass and cut, by setting that situation up first into a layup drill, for instance. The second way we can do it, again, very commonly, is to time it. I like to keep it quick and repeat it a number of times, so a minute, 2 minutes. You can set a target at the outset, or you can do it once and then the target becomes, well, beat your score. So if you got 5 last time, go with 10. And that can be particularly useful when you have groups of varying experience. So that the group competes against themselves, not against a group that may be significantly more skilled. The last one is to add some deductions. Makes the scoring a bit more complicated. You might need a coach with each group to help with the scoring. But for instance, if it's first to 7 baskets, once you're on 2, if you miss that next shot, you drop back to 1. If you're on 5 and you miss the 6th shot, you drop back to 4, something like that. You can also use rules for different teams. So if you've got one really experienced team, you might say, you've got to make your 7 shots in a row, whereas other teams are just first to make 7. Whatever will challenge the particular groups you'll have helps to enhance that competitiveness in time and score situations. Golden Child is a game played in many associations and is a real favourite in the Aussie Hoops program. But you can play it with players of any level of experience, even senior players. So you have 2 teams. I've only shown 3 players in each team, but it can be more than that. The blue team, which I have shown in the key, each have a ball and they're taking a designated shot. Might be from the under 10 free throw line. Might be a 3-point shot if it's experienced players or adult players. The black team each have a ball and they're dribbling and they're trying to get around the 3-point line, back along the baseline and back to home base, and that's a point, just like in baseball. Every time blue makes a shot, the black dribbler stops and they stay wherever they got to, and the next dribbler comes. The last person, which in this case would be number 3, as they run past a stopped teammate, that teammate starts again. So it's a last chance to score on the home run and get back to that home base. If someone does get around and goes through a home base, you don't have them run a second time. You can only run the once. So it becomes really competitive. Make the shot specific to the level of experience and team to enhance the competitiveness. You can make them dribble around the 3-point line, dribble around the half court, dribble around the key. Like, you can adjust that as well, depending on the level of experience. But it is an activity that generates a lot of intensity and a lot of game-like intensity. So you're taking that shot under the pressure of, I've got to make this shot, or they will score. How do we teach being competitive, and what's the essence of it? We know every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And we know that action comes first. So in a sporting contest, reaction is playing catch-up. You're behind the 8 ball. You're going to be slower because you're responding to somebody. So competitive activities for me are where your players are reading, responding to another player. They're trying to create a reaction in that player. So you want them to be acting first and then observe the reaction. See what response is made and then counter it. You want to make your reaction an action. You want to react to what you anticipate happening. And we'll come back to that, particularly in some team activities. But first, to look at some individual activities that are without contact. Keep your social distance. So you're in pairs, everyone has a ball. Designate a leader, doesn't matter how you do it. So the group on the left, the ones, the leader simply dribbles forward, backwards, sideways, and their partner must stay within 1.5 meters directly in front of them. No more, no less. So the leader might change pace, stop, start, change direction, try and lose that partner. And the partner is, of course, trying to stay that exact distance. Requires them to keep their head up when they're dribbling. It is competitive and it's a fun activity. You might do it for a minute, something like that, and then change the leader. The pair on the right, numbers 2, they're doing it slightly differently. The leader is still moving, etc. But when the leader stops, their partner must dribble past them, just like you would in a game. If you've created a situation where the defender is out of position, bang, you've got to go. You've got to punch forward. So they dribble past and they turn around, and then that person becomes the leader. And so again, we go on. Dribble chicken. Each player has a ball and they're in pairs again. They start 4 or 5 meters apart. They dribble towards each other and they dribble with the same hand. So both right or both left. Then as they get to each other, just before they run into each other, they make a dribble move and then go past. And the coach designates the move. Might be a hesitation dribble, in which case they don't change hands. Might be a crossover. Might be a lateral movement and a punch. Really, it can be any movement the coach wants to use. What the players are learning is how to anticipate the movement of another person, how to judge that space as 2 people are moving and closing. And it's really important to be able to judge space, particularly when players are moving. So that's a really important skill, and this simple little activity will help develop that. A cone race. I've only shown 2 people doing it, but you can have your whole group spread out across the court doing this. So both players have a ball. The player that's on the sideline, as I've shown it, is dribbling. And they start in the middle. The other player is basically a defender, holding their ball. It's a race to get to a cone. And the dribbler chooses which cone they want to go to as they're moving laterally. And they should fake. Maybe they start going left and then they go right. Maybe they go left, right, left, go again. So they're trying to lose that defender and get to the cone first. The importance of the defender having a ball is that they're holding it to emphasize moving their feet first. Too often we see players on defense moving their arm first as their first movement, and that's when you get beaten. You must be moving your feet like a boxer. You've always got to be quick on your feet and move 2 feet in response to movement from your opponent. You can do this for a certain amount of time and then swap, or it might be once they get to a cone, they come back to the middle and you swap who the dribbler is and who the defender is. That's really up to you. It's a short activity, but after a minute or 2 minutes, you might rotate so they get to play against a different person. And again, simplest way to rotate might be youngest player rotates clockwise, something like that. Mirror punch is another pairs drill where 2 people facing each other, dribbling the ball. So you designate a leader, however you want to do that. And the leader might be, they're standing still, but they might be swapping hands, going behind their back. Whatever they're doing, their partner has to mirror. And then when the leader wants to, they punch forward. So they dribble forward. And at that same time, their partner has to go. So we're really emphasizing quick movement, seeing that opportunity to go and then going. And of course, they miss each other. There's no contact at all. As soon as they've swapped, they turn around, face each other, and go again. And that might be where you swap who the leader is. And the leader can fake. Can they make it look like they're going forward and then do a quick retreat and have their partner have gone forward, things like that, so that they're responding, they're trying to create a reaction from their opponent, which is so important to being able to beat an opponent. Mirror stop is a similar drill to the previous 2, but here the dribbler moves between the cones. The defender who's holding the ball must stay in front of them. Now, if the dribbler gets ahead of the defender, then bang, they go forward, and then the defender dribbles out, turn around, and we've swapped roles. The other thing, though, in this drill is that the defender at any time can simply stop. And that's where the dribbler now must go. They must see that, I've beaten this defender. The defender is out of position, and they must punch forward. So it's a great activity for working against that person and then being ready to explode and beat them. Now looking at more team-oriented competitive activities, but again, they're very simple activities, and there are many, many others that coaches can use. Piggies in the middle. It's simply a keeping off type drill. I have shown 5 offensive players standing in a circle with 2 defenders. If you had 7 in the circle, you could have 3 defenders. You can't pass to the people next to you, so 1 cannot pass to 2 and 3, which means they're only passing to 4 or 5. The 2 defenders are trying to get a tip, trying to get an intercept. You can do it for a certain amount of time. How many tips, intercepts did they do? Or you can do it that if they do get a tip or an intercept, the passer and whoever they are passing to become defenders, and the 2 defenders step out. I actually prefer going for a time because otherwise some players may not do too much defense if they're good. I like to reward them, but also get in their mindset doing 24 seconds, doing 48 seconds, a long stretch of the defense. In this drill, what you really want to start to talk about is making your reaction an action. So if one who's on the ball makes it really clear they're putting pressure so the pass can only go to one side, then 2, their teammate, should be moving early, getting ready to intercept, anticipate where the pass is going. In this case, it would be going to 5. Can't go to 3. Anticipate, be there to pick that off. It also helps your offensive players look to read that defender. Don't just look at the person you're passing to. You need to look at the defender and see, is there someone that's anticipating? If one's pressure is not good enough, then the pass can go to 4. So we're also learning how to put good pressure on the ball and to act first and create an opportunity. This next drill is one that's great just for practicing rotation, but it's also a really good non-contact competitive activity. So you have as many offensive players as you want spread around the 3-point line. They don't cut, they just stand where they are, although you can at a later point introduce cutting if you wish. They get a point if they can dribble the ball twice on the spot before a defender is in position to guard them. And that's done so that they're not just slinging the ball around in an unrealistically fast fashion. You could also have they've got to lift it above their head like a shot fake to get the point. Go for a minute. The defensive goal, of course, is to get 0. The defensive rule is quite simple. You must always have someone on the ball. You must have someone high, which is 2. You must have someone low, which is 3. My rule certainly is that you always come out from the high-low position to the ball rather than chasing the ball. So when 1 passes to 2, defender 1 doesn't chase it. Defender 1 moves back to the high position. Defender 2 comes out to the ball. Similarly, as it then kicks on to 3, defender 3 moves to the ball. Defender 1 rotates down to the low position. Defender 2 comes back to the high position. That movement gives a real opportunity for the anticipation, making your reaction an action. So if the on-ball defender takes away a pass on one side, then the high and low defenders can take a step, can move towards where the pass is going to be made to anticipate whether or not it's an intercept or whether that just gives them the opportunity to get there before a point is scored. It doesn't matter. We're teaching them to anticipate and make their reaction an action. But no contact, highly competitive. You can even add a 4th defender. And I use that defender's role to be deny a reversal pass. But you could add whatever your team rule might be. So here, 4 is denying the pass to 6, but we allow the pass to 2. When 2's got it, we allow a pass to 3, but we don't allow a pass to 1. And what we see there is, again, when the pass is made, defender 2 moves from the high-low position, the split line position, out to guard the ball. So you want them anticipating and being ready to move there. 4 drops back. 1 simply jumps to the ball and moves into a denial position, which is a skill that's often lacking in teams where they don't jump to the ball and then they get face cut. But 2, anticipating from 1's pressure and position, it might be 1 or 2 steps closer before the pass is even made, and that would also make a pass to 3. So there's some activities that you can use to emphasize competitiveness, but without contact. There are, of course, many others that you can use. The importance is, though, that we need to be teaching athletes and putting them in situations where they are developing those skills and that mindset to compete, for each player to win the battle against their opponent, for each team to win the contest against the other team. This is the last in our series focused specifically on return to sport following the COVID break. However, we will be continuing the podcast series through the year, so keep an eye on the BA website and the BA socials for details as further podcasts come out. Good luck with your coaching, good luck with your teams, and have a safe return to basketball. Cheers.